Hi, this is Eternal King here bringing you another gaming video today. So, I'm back from my trade show grind. It has been 10 days back to back. I went to Washington and then I went to Montreal. But overall, we are still, vibing. We're still doing okay. A little worn out, but no worse for the wear, really. And in fact, I have to go back. I have to go to Texas in about a week to Houston, and then that'll be my last one for a little bit. Thank goodness. So, talking about the subject of this video, and it's basically that, all of the Eternal decks that are now standard viable. There are quite a few. Honestly, most of the major ones. So, of course, I can't really talk about like standard Eternal without talking about Azir Aurelia, right? So, like, Azir Aurelia, basically card for card, is just like, a standard deck now. The only thing you really have to do is you have to run lead and follow now, because you don't get access to like some specific tech cards. You don't get shaped stone, right? Shaped stone is really nice because you're going to be running some landmarks in Azir Aurelia. Six, you always run the Emperor's Dais. You always run Emperor's Army. So shaped stone can be really nice in this deck. So like you might do 3 shaped stones instead of 3 lead and follows, and like that's a little faster, not even that much better. And then the other one you might run is Forsaken Bakai. Forsaken Bakai specifically in Eternal is really nice because of Legion Rearguard existing. If you don't know, Legion Rearguard is a 1 mana 3/2. So having a 1 mana 2/1 to block into the aggro deck like Ziggs Poppy or whatever, when they jam Legion Rearguard is really important. But again, this is standard, so you don't really need that. So this is like literally 100% a Eternal deck that is in standard, and as far as I'm concerned, there's very little that can like be done about this. The only way to beat a deck this strong in standard, and like I have not lost a single game in standard ranked since I've just like been testing the Eternal deck performance in this format. I've not lost a single game because it's like, what do you do against this? It's an Eternal powered deck in a standard format. The only other thing you could do is basically Swain, right? So they made some cheap removal available, specifically Swain being standard viable, right? So you're gonna want to be in like your flocks, right? You're gonna want to be in your flocks. You're gonna want to be in your disintegrate. You're potentially gonna want to be in your make it rains, right? In bilge water. So basically just like pings and cheap removal, right? And like that's gonna let you compete against an Eternal power deck in standard. But otherwise, I have no idea what you do. Now, it's funny because standard players don't really know how to play these decks, so the actual win rate translation is very low. So this deck auto pilots 60% in Eternal, but then you go to standard stats and it's winning like 51%, 53%, and that's just piloting efficiency because the deck hasn't lost any cards to make it good. It's literally just piloting efficiency where people are like, I don't understand how you play an Eternal deck. And the answer to that's pretty simple. It's just like auto leveling. It's just like understanding that like Azir Aurelia is a champ focused deck. And if you aren't flipping Aurelia, if you aren't flipping Azir, then you're not playing the deck right. And so that's one of the things that's different from Eternal to Standard is that Standard is typically like champs don't matter. You just play them and they're just a card. In Eternal, there are a lot of decks where like the champ is the only thing that matters. You guys all know how much I love Rise, and it's like Rise and Eternal is literally the champs matters deck in LOR history. So if you don't understand how to play for champions, don't play Azir Aurelia, essentially, in Standard. But if you do have, any sort of long history with the game, you're going to do very, very well. Now, the other Champs Matters deck from Eternal that is now in Standard is, of course, going to be Annie Jin, right? Let's make sure I got the right version. Nope, that's the Eternal version. Yeah, the Standard version doesn't lose much. like I said, you just like you run Precious Pet instead of Legion Rearguard, and then it's just Annie Jin. Like you're not really losing anything. I think in the Eternal version, you typically run Decimate for like more burn, but then you can just run like Doom Beast instead, and like Doom Beast isn't even a bad card. It's more burn in a Annie Jin package. So like yes, it's worse than Decimate, but it's not like that much worse. So this is the thing, is like there's just like easy substitutions for some of these cards you lose. Precious Pet for Legion Rearguard, and then Doom Beast for Decimate. Otherwise, the deck is pretty much card for card the exact same as you run it in Eternal, and as such is exceptionally powerful. Because typically the way that standard players build decks is they just don't have answers for turn 1 Annie, right? Turn 1 Annie comes down, and standard players are like, I don't know what to do, because you just auto flip Annie. And then the game is basically over. Like they don't understand how to play for champions in this format. And what it means is that if you are an Eternal player who is used to piloting these decks, and then you transition to the standard format, you're not going to lose. Unless it's like that one Swain player with Flock. Like you're just not gonna lose, period, full stop. So this is another deck that I can recommend. That's like, this is Eternal Power in Standard. Now, what is another great example of an Eternal Power deck that is now Standard legal? And you might be surprised by the answer. It's mostly like more off-meta stuff, right? But it's actually there if you look for it. I really like Grand Plaza, right? Grand Plaza Hecarim. This was actually a Mogwai deck way back in the day, and yes, I don't forget decks in LOR. I'm one of the few players that's been around long enough to kind of know what all these decks are and how they play. And yes, Grand Plaza Hecarim, by the metrics of the standard format, is actually quite strong. Especially because you can just jam in like your comprehensive removal package. Like you can have your Glare for the cycle power. You can have your Soul Harvest to remove Azirs and Aurelias. You just get that, right? You have your Vengeances for bigger stuff. Like you just have good removal in a Lucian Hecarim package. You have your draw with your Glimpses to cash in on your Ephemerals. And then otherwise, you just do Grand Plaza things, which is, jam Haunted Relic after you play Grand Plaza, and then fully board wipe the opponent, essentially. Soul Harvester, Soul Shepherd, obviously. Shark Chariot, pretty obvious why you run those cards. Senna because of Lucian, because sometimes you just get to auto-level Lucian. And then Grizzled Ranger is kind of, the old-school Grand Plaza tech, where because he has Scout, you attack with him, trade with something, he dies, and then you get to attack again with the unit that he summons, and he also has Challenger again. So it's actually considered like valid to run Grizzled Ranger in Grand Plaza. So like that's like off meta. Really, really off meta, but still kind of really cool to run in Eternal Standard. It is the correct power level to play right now for this format. The next thing you could potentially do, and it's also just like more interesting than like, I want to play Fearsome Aggro. Like Fearsome Aggro is kind of meh. In my opinion, it's pretty boring. There's better Shadow Isle stuff to run, to be honest. The next thing is She Who Wanders, not She Who Wanders, but Spiders. Kind of, here it is. This is old school LOR Eternal Tech as well, and it's basically, you don't know, it's They Who Endure, right? Iceborne Legacy, They Who Endure. Really strong by standard, again, like, it's not going to feel strong until, like, Disintegrate Swain, where he just plays, like, a ping and then They Who Endure dies off a Disintegrate. But, like, other than that, it's going to feel pretty good. And once again, you just have, like, good Shadow Isles cards. You have your Vengeance, you have your, Brood Awakening is good because of Iceborne Legacy. When all of a sudden your Spiders are 3/3s, Brood Awakening's kind of a better card. They're actually 4/3s when they come out. So, it's Iceborne Legacy, Spiders with They Who Endure, comprehensive removal packages, all that good stuff. And what you want to put, like the junk cards you want to put into this deck, kind of, are a little bit of like dealer's choice. You can put in more draw into your Shadow Isles package, so like Ceaseless Sentry. You can put in more aggro with like Cursed Keeper plus Ravenous Butcher, but like at the end of the day, doesn't matter much. Like if you want to run it like this and then just drop Hawk and drop Snow Dog, you know, I like them because they're proactive plays in this deck, but I also don't like to play the game very slowly, so like I'm not the best person to, you know, ask about that. But if you prefer to do like Ceaseless Sentry plus Curse Keeper plus 3 Rapid Switchers, go nuts. It's not gonna like set your hair on fire one way or the other. It's basically just like bulk sacrifice fodder, and the exact way you want to do that is up to you. But this is going to be very, very good, one way or the other. It's just you play units that are designed to die. You summon a bunch of spiders, which are designed to die. You buff the spiders with Iceborne Legacy, but they still die, and then you slam a big day to endure. It's pretty classic Eternal tech, and it's actually very, very viable right now. In fact, if you were to do like Iceborne Legacy spiders into Azirarelia, I don't know who would win that fight because they're both like really solid Eternal decks. They're both token-based decks, but one is like, I want my stuff to die and I have more draw than you, and the other one's like, I just want to keep swinging until you die. It is basically the way that works. Both of these decks are very good in terms of like Eternal standard decks.